welcome back to Game Boy Thon, episode 2 in the first 6 games of 1990. Are you ready for an exciting episode? Well, don't get too excited. We've got a lot of early title mediocrity today, a few puzzle titles, 2 games from Nintendo, and the first Western-produced game for the console. So let's get started. Well, Konami, your first entry into the Western Game Boy market was pretty lame. Let's see part 2 with Motocross Maniacs, the first racing game for the Game Boy. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Ultra Games published this, the company Konami created in the West to bypass Nintendo's publishing policy. But Nintendo, are you really fooled? Konami's name is right there on the title screen. Anyways, right off the bat, this game of course brings minds to Excitebike, and they're pretty close in style. A platform-style racer by going off ramps and curving the bike to land properly to avoid crashing, because you need to reach the goal before time runs out. But it's better to consider this a strategy game more than a racing game. In order to reach the goal, you need to collect power-ups along the way, most importantly the Nitro, which increases your speed. You need that speed to launch yourself to reach the correct paths or go through this loop-de-loop that suspiciously resembles the one from Sonic. Now if you run out of Nitro, then you're pretty much out of luck. You're stuck on the ground level, and that normally means rolling through the mud, waiting for the timer to run out. If Konami programmed a restart or go back to the main menu in this game, I wouldn't be complaining as much. Other power-ups include extra time, just in case, increased speed and better tires, which I think is to help get through the mud better, I don't know, but don't get too attached to these final 2 because crash and they disappear. Special gripes go to these rocks that I wasn't sure how to properly jump over. After trial and error, you just need to press left on the D-pad. Not too complicated afterwards, but honestly, there was no reason they needed to be coded in the game. Motocross Maniacs isn't a bad game, but it could have been better if Konami knew what kind of game they were making. Also of mention is the versus computer mode where you race a shadow. Not recommended, as I said, I don't see this as a racing game. Konami eventually released 2 sequels on the Game Boy Color in advance, so we'll see if this series gets any better from here. Well, here we are. 8 games in and we've reached the first Western developed game from your good buddies at Rareware, Wizards and Warriors X, The Fortress of Fear. If you're not familiar with the Wizards and Warriors series, it was one of Rare's first games on the NES. Apparently they sold units because it got 3 sequels including this one. If there's anything the series is known for now, it's that Housewife's Fantasy Fabio is on the cover of the second game before he got his big break with I Can't Believe It's Not Butter.
I can't believe it's not butter.
The first game was a not very good platformer where the knight Kuros jumps around on tree stumps way too high off the ground and goes inside them to platform on top of narrow little tree branches, which I can guarantee you'll fall down. The sequel was definitely a lot better and more of an adventure game.
Water and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands! Back, fire beast!
But now we come to this title, which drops the adventure aspect for a pretty standard action platformer. The game itself is, well, I wouldn't say it's the worst game in the world, even compared to Castlevania The Adventure from last episode, but it has a lot of problems. Firstly, Kuros himself and his awful jump. Check this part out right here. You basically have to take a leap of fate to land on this tiny platform, and even if you manage to land on it, you take damage because there's falling damage in this game. Unless your name is Super Mario 64, do not put falling damage in your game. But I guess this leads to a positive. Every time you die, you reappear exactly where you left off, or on the ledge where you last died at. Who shot that arrow and where are they coming from? The enemies in this game are pretty easy to take down, especially these common bats and these fish that you zap to death. But along the way, the enemies can get in your way and drain your health in no time. But thankfully someone left out meat and wine for you to consume in case that happens, and there are treasure chests abound that need unlocking with keys that are uncommon to find. When you do open one, it brings up this title card telling you what's inside. Can't the item just appear above my head so we can just get a move on? But going back to enemies, sadly killing them isn't all that exciting. Where in other games hitting an enemy can produce a noise that sounds positive to the ears, Wizards and Warriors X produce a pretty lukewarm noise that when I first hit an enemy that took multiple hits to kill, I had no idea I was close enough. Because you know, making enemies flash when I hit them requires effort to code. Strangely, every time you enter a new area, this ye old gate comes down, revealing this message that you made it through a section of the level with the same message about this Malkill guy. Is it really necessary to tell me this every time? Why not just every time I enter a new level? Why even have this gate at all? Why not a fade out then fade in at the next part of the level? There's a lot of strange nitpicks that I have with this that I pretty much take for granted in any other game. Here's the first boss. My strategy is just standing in one area and then constantly swiping my sword, hoping to land a hit before it kills me. You know, I can't say effort wasn't put into this game. I mean, the presentation is pretty great. Rare did a good job with detailing some of these sprites, but detail went into the wrong area. And what we're left with is a beige of a game that could have been decent with a bit of tweaking. And for some reason, the constant message of Malkill was important for every new area of the level, but no continues. Lose all your lives and it's back to the beginning. So thanks a lot, Rare and Acclaim. I'm not looking forward to your future disappointments. Moving on to puzzle games, Boxxle, the box-pushing puzzle game. Better to call it under its Japanese name, Sokoban. Sokoban was a puzzle game from 1982 originating from Japan where a warehouse keeper must push, not pull, boxes into the correct position. Programmed by one Hiroyuki Imabayashi and published by the company Thinking Rabbit. This game was pretty popular and inspired so many puzzle games that Sokoban is considered its own genre. For example, The Adventures of Lolo took many ideas from Sokoban. So by 1990, that original concept isn't really that impressive, and in the end we get a decent but difficult puzzle game that actually fits quite well on the Game Boy. As said before, this game, you play as a warehouse keeper trying to impress a girl by giving her his gift of English, I guess. This port was done by the contract developer Atelier Double, who have made mostly games in Japan, but you might have heard of one of their more infamous ports, Winter Games on the NES. Fujisankei Communications International, or FCI, published the game, a subsidiary of Fujisankei Communications Group, the Japanese mega conglomerate. We'll see more of their Western published games on Game Boy, each with this awful art style to go with it. I guess if I had one positive to say, that this is in the Sega Genesis game Shove It, the warehouse game, or the only way to play the original puzzle game before the advent of the internet. Also, there is a create mode, which is okay, I guess, despite no battery backup to save it. And if there's anything noteworthy about this game, is that it contains the first use of a voice sampling in a Game Boy game. Yeah, nothing short of poetry. On to bigger disappointments. Hyper Lode Runner, The Labyrinth of Doom, given a useless subtitle for no reason in the States. But anyways, if you're wondering what Lode Runner is, it was a PC game in 1983 from Broderbund and produced by one Douglas E. Smith. This game got a following in Japan, as Hudson took the honor of producing the version for Famicom/NES with the follow-up Championship Lode Runner a year later. The game has you as a treasure hunter, I guess, searching for the gold inside these caverns, but inside are robots, I think, who want you dead. To take care of them, you dig holes that trap them inside for a few seconds, which gives you the opportunity to walk over them and maybe collect the gold that you have stolen. But you can also escape to the lower field by digging holes and falling below. So far, so good. This game sounds really fun, yes? Well, I will say compared to the NES game, I like the sense of speed this game has, much better paced. But the hyper in the title is fitting, seeing how this game is pretty devastatingly hard. I do not recommend this as your first attempt at Lode Runner, as most of the puzzles involve some trial and error, or just a monotonous pattern in an attempt to collect all the gold, like this level. This version was produced by a company called Tosa, a contract developer much like Rare in their early years. However, they usually went uncredited. Bandai usually liked to contract them, who you know as the toy manufacturer that merged with Namco in 2005. We'll see their name pop up a few times this series, and their content usually ranges in quality, probably depending on how big the paycheck was. What's nice about this game is that you're given a level select and an option to go back to the main menu, probably because you'll get stuck a lot in this game. Oh, and who couldn't forget those wonderful hidden pits? Hyper Lode Runner is really close to being good, but its difficulty keeps it from that title. The only level I was able to beat was level 7, and even then it wasn't with wondrous applause, just minimal acceptance. Also, before I forget, there is an edit mode, much like Boxxle. So if you're really interested, there you go. Lode Runner games continue to be produced up until 2012, so one of those has to be a much better experience than this one. You might as well skip this. Well now, back to generic Nintendo sports titles from the NES, Golf. The original NES Golf was a pretty lackluster even for a generic Nintendo sports title. Mario playing golf on golf courses that got sucked into a black hole with only one sound, the sound of the ball in the air. Thankfully, I can say more effort was put into the presentation of this game. Mario goes to an actual golf course this time. It's also the first Game Boy title to have a battery backup included. Why this game exactly is anyone's guess. You choose an 18-hole golf course, either USA or Japan, then you're on your way. If you're familiar with any golf game, then you know the concept of the 3-time button system to make a swing. Hit a few more times until it reaches the hole, repeat 17 more times, and then you're done. My only real problem with this game is the fact it's golf. I'm not a fan of golf. That's just land we could be using for the homeless. And even bigger is that anyone who isn't a golfer wouldn't know what most of these golf clubs do. It doesn't give you hints with what club to use for what situation. The only thing it suggests is giving you the putter when you're on the green. Now it's not sure which department of Nintendo actually produced this, but considering this is the Game Boy, I'm gonna assume that it's just Nintendo R&D 1. Here's my final score. Pretty pathetic, I know, but at least Mario's happy. I guess if you like golf, then give this one a try. Maybe you'll like it, but I think I'll confirm that golf games will only get better from here. I guess this is the big game of the episode, SolarStriker. Nintendo's entry into the shoot-'em-up genre. Well, actually, Nintendo R&D 1 and Minakuchi Engineering. Who is Minakuchi Engineering? From what I gather, they seem to be a contract developer who isn't widely as known as Tosa. I guess this episode is the contract developer episode. We'll see their name a few times on Game Boy Thon. Nintendo did make shoot-'em-ups before this, before hitting it big with Donkey Kong in arcades, one of them being a shameless Space Invaders clone. Ever since then, Nintendo never touched the genre till today. I say that like this game's exciting, however this game is not that impressive. Pretty ironic calling it the big game this episode. In fact, it's pretty much the basics on how to make a shoot-'em-up before finding a gimmick to make it stand out. You shoot enemies, like these Peanuts and Galaga enemies, hit the eyeball to collect a power-up which will make you shoot stronger and fight the boss at the end. Repeat a few levels and game over. That is, if you can make it that far, because surprise surprise, there are no continues. I guess it stands out in the fact your shooter doesn't completely go back to basics like every other shoot-'em-up when you die. But if that's the nicest part about it, then you've got a really, really bare game. It's no wonder this genre died out by the 90s and never recovered. Despite the forgettableness of SolarStriker, it's still getting the title of Best Game this episode. It can still be fun in a minimal way. The worst, however, is a toss-up between Wizards and Warriors X for being a decent game hidden within an awful game, or Golf, a just flat-out boring title. But I have a feeling there are golf fans watching, so I'll give it to Wizards and Warriors X. Next episode will be a little more exciting as we'll actually have games worth remembering. 2 puzzle games inspired by Sokoban, a solid pinball game, and our first steps into licensed titles. See you next time.